early days, I was always comparing ourselves to other brands, and I was so competitive, and I would get so fired up when I would see like other brands do stuff that maybe was more innovative, or like maybe they had a really cool marketing campaign. I'm like, man, that's what we need to get to. The suppliers had stitched a pattern on the back pocket. It was just a sample, and I didn't realize like stitching can be trademarked. Like how, like I didn't know this. You know, I'm still new to the game. Bro. So American Eagle sent us like a letter that they were suing us, and this was like, we're like 4 years in, so that was really scary.
American Eagle. What you had to do at the time to like where you're at now?
It is. I think I don't do a very good job of reflecting on that, because I'm still in the arena. Like, you know what I mean? So like,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
You know, Mal and I have had some really big wins over the years, and like, you know, like milestones that should have been celebrated, like at least a bottle of champagne, or like, you know, like at least maybe like a cool gift I should have got her, or she should, like, we should have recognized some of these moments that, but we're so competitive. Yeah, it was like immediately on to the next thing. You know what I mean? Like I remember I texted her once about a really cool milestone we had achieved, and I just happened to stumble across it like on Shopify. Like I crunched a few numbers, and I'm like, holy shit, like that just happened. And I remember I texted her, and she was like, you know, like said something like, oh, that's awesome. And then immediately follow up with a question like, hey, did you see that, like the thing on the website, like we need to change that font or whatever, you know, like it was right back to work, you know, which in a way I love, but it's in a way not a great way to live long-term, because like you do have to enjoy the moment a little bit too.
I'm so bad about that too, man.
Yeah, so you can relate, you know, I think when you're type A, it's always like, all right, what's the next thing I need to conquer?
Or I need to do better. Yeah. I'm not doing good enough. Yes. Or I look at other people that are more successful than me. I'm like, they are doing so good right now. I need to get better. I need to start working towards that. I'm not good enough. I'm not working hard enough. I need to work harder. Or like, this really could have been better. And then you just start focusing all like the nitty gritty, like what the problems you might perceive are. Yeah, I have a real hard time of like taking a second to just like be, you know, like, wow, you know, we've come a long way. Because people will tell me sometimes, folks that I've talked to, like, they're like, man, you're crushing it or whatever, you know, and I'm sure you probably have the same thing. And I'm like, man, I feel like I haven't done anything. I feel like I haven't accomplished anything. I feel like I am still at square one every day. Yeah. And maybe that's what keeps me hungry. I don't know. Definitely not healthy to stay in that mindset all the time. You gotta, like you said, you gotta take a second to be grateful for like your successes and celebrate your small wins, even if they are small, because man, if you don't, I'll just stay sucked into this black hole of I'm not doing good enough. Everything sucks, and I need to work harder. Yeah, you know. No, dude, so well put. And I do think it is a superpower in a way, because it does, maybe in a sick way, right? But it does motivate you. Yeah. And one thing I'll say about that, man, because I know you're still on your journey too, is run your own race. Yeah. I still do this, but I'm much better about it now. But in the early days, I was always comparing ourselves to other brands, and I was so competitive, and I would get so fired up when I would see like other brands do stuff that maybe was more innovative, or like maybe they had a really cool marketing campaign. I'm like, man, we should have, like, that's what we need to get to. Yeah. Or in our case, a lot of the brands we were competing with were starting to raise a bunch of capital. So they were going private equity and getting, you know, $20, $30 million investments that are saying, hey, here's a bunch of growth capital. And then they're able to go sponsor the CrossFit Games, and they're able to do this. And we were all born in like at the same time. Yeah. And, you know, these guys are full-time, you know, all they're doing is their business. And I'm a freaking active duty SEAL trying to run it with my, you know, wife at the time. You know what I mean? Like side hustle, no capital. We have to bootstrap the whole thing. So like I had this like underdog complex of like, you know what I mean? But it worked out, man. 'Cause now a lot of these people, and I'm not going to name them, own 0.5% of their companies. They've had horrible, experiences with private equity. They might have created a little bit of liquidity for their family and wealth, but like, you know what I mean? At the cost of now, like the thing you built, like you don't own anymore, and you now have a boss. Right? See, that sucks. I don't want a boss, bro. Yeah. I want to be my own boss. Like after where I'm at right now, like you're talking about, when I am transitioning, I want to be my own boss for the rest of my life. Yeah. I love working with people, cool with that, but I love being able to be like, it's on you, and nobody else is telling me like, you need to do this. Like, no, I'll tell myself what I need to do. Like, I'd much rather do that. And I'm more intrinsically motivated to work harder for myself than I am for somebody else above me anyway. You know what I mean? Exactly. Just naturally, because like you're going to work harder for yourself if it's for you and your family and it's your own thing, than if like, you know, like if you're working flipping burgers at McDonald's, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Unless you if you own the McDonald's, you're going to be busting your ass in there, flipping the shit out of those burgers. But if it's like somebody else's, then you're like, why would I want to work harder for that? I mean, that's just one example, like in the private sector anyway. But I can't imagine doing that while also being an active SEAL. Like the level of like like the high intensity rotation rates, like deployments, workups, the training, like the early mornings to do all the stuff that you have to do that. I can't imagine doing that and also running a business and trying to scale constantly, trying to build constantly, trying to find people who are interested in the product, marketing, and doing all this stuff on your own while you're still trying to build a team and stuff. Like, when did you like, how many years were you into the Navy before you hired your first like employee?
I think our first actual employee salaried was July of 2017. So that would have been 3 years and 3 months.
Okay.
And that was like our finally, like, okay, we have to outsource this because
I can't do this anymore.
It was definitely a struggle there in the beginning. And like, the good thing about Mal is like she had zero sympathy for me and what I was doing in my military life. Zero sympathy, which is what I needed. So like I still joke about this, but because we were born in the CrossFit space. So our early marketing plan was basically we would just go to every CrossFit event we could and set up a little like 10 by 10 booth and like sling t-shirts and hoodies and stuff. Like that was for the first 4 years, that was basically our marketing plan.
Wow.
But we were ruthless. Like we would just go to everything and like every weekend was taken. So when I was in SEAL training for the first like month, you're not really allowed to if I think until Hell Week, you're not allowed to leave the compound, if I remember it right. And then after Hell Week, you can leave on the weekends. So she started booking us for like weekend events. So we'd be vendors there. Oh, and I'd limp through the door on Friday because I lived off base with her because I was married. I was able to, I literally, would hobble through the door, Friday at like, 9 o'clock after like however many hours we just worked that week.
Yeah.
And she'd be like, we got to pack the Jeep. Like we got an event in Anaheim tomorrow. We got to be set up by 6 a.m. And I'd be like,
God,
all my buddies are like going to get massages and getting, deep tissue and all like stretching and like maybe going to practice the O course if they're still like, and like doing things that are specific to just, all right, I'm in one of the hardest trainings on the planet. Like I need to focus on just completing that. Yeah. And Mal's like, oh, you got to pack the Jeep. We got to go to Anaheim tomorrow for a CrossFit event. So I have to take that hat off and put on my, business hat and then go stand on my feet at a booth all day long in 80-degree heat, trying to sell t-shirts to people at a CrossFit event that has 100 people there. You know what I mean? And then we'd pack the Jeep, drive back, and then we'd have to re-inventory everything. And you have a lot of like stuff you got to do on the weekends to prep your gear. Like you got to sharpen your dive knife and you got to repaint your helmet. And all these things that are meant to take time because they want you stressed. And they would use it to measure attention to detail. Like you got to re-stencil your helmet and put these little, and so they would inspect all that next week. So most of the guys, like a lot of your weekend, you're spent like redoing your helmet and sharpening your knife. And I remember we're coming back from Anaheim and we're in the Jeep and Mal's driving and I'm trying to do my helmet with tweezers because you gotta stencil your name, so you use tweezers and we're hitting bumps and like the A is crooked and it was already like stuck on there. I'm like, it. Like I'm just gonna get my ass beat on Monday. You know what I mean? So like we go to like our inspection, whatever it was Monday morning, and they see like it, just get my ass beat, and I'm just kind of laughing like, yeah, I totally would have passed, but if they didn't know I was bouncing around in a Jeep Rubicon on the 5 trying to like do my helmet when you know what I mean? Like it should be on the table, like super neat, like you got to get it just right. You know? So those are the stories I look back and laugh. Of like, thank God I was dumb enough to not know any better of how nuts that was. You know what I mean?
It's just so crazy to think back to, dude. I can't even imagine like the level of stress and pressure you're under. And then you have to kind of like, you have to compartmentalize it, I would imagine, because you're like, okay, I know I've got all this stuff that has to get done and I'm going to figure out a way to get it done, but I have to do this right now because this is like my business and my livelihood. And, did you know at the time that you were planning on rolling into that when you like post service?
No, I mean, there was no plan, dude. It was just like, again, there was not like a big vision. It was just, we were just so competitive that we just wanted to compete in that space. So like, that was really the only goal was in the moment was just to compete. Yeah. And since we didn't have, any outside capital or anything, we bootstrapped everything. The only way to do it was like, all right, well, one thing that doesn't cost anything is effort. You know what I mean? So we're just going to outwork everyone. We're going to go to every event. We're going to use our own vehicle. We're going to use our own house. We're not going to hire employees. Mal, when I was like in training, to her credit, she was running all the operations. So she had been a dental hygienist with no business experience and just hung that up and was like, all right, I'm going all in on this with you. You know what I mean? So
did she see the potential then?
Yeah, well, and she had to learn everything, because in the beginning, as you know, like you're everything. You're the accountant, you're the supply chain officer, you're the marketing manager, you're this. Like you literally have to do everything. Yeah. And even legal counsel. There were some potential lawsuits that I had to fight off, that I had to read about case law so I could have calls with these lawyers and tell them why they didn't have a case. Like you literally do everything, literally. You know what I mean?
Man.
Yeah. I remember we had made our first jean short and we had, long story short, they had the suppliers had stitched a pattern on the back pocket. It was just a sample. And I didn't realize stitching can be trademarked. I didn't know this, I'm still new to the game.
Bro.
So American Eagle sent us a letter that they were suing us, and this was we're 4 years in, so that was really scary.
American Eagle,
yes, and to their credit, we resolved it. But I broke out my old. I took a pre-law class freshman year at Yale with Bob Dunn, and I remembered some of that class, so I broke up my old notes because we didn't have ChatGPT at this time. Otherwise, I would just ChatGPT.
Yeah. What do I need to do?
And I found the notes, and I found case law. For this, kind of what they were accusing us of, and I was ready to go. So I remember I had a call with them. There were 3 partners on the call, and I'm an active duty. So I think I was on a deployment or I was on a training trip. And
oh my god!
And I said, all right, you guys all bill $1,000 an hour to your client plus. How many years combined do you guys have in law? And it was they each had 20 plus years. All right, so you guys have 70 years combined. I have 0. Jesus. You guys are billing your client $3,000 an hour right now because you guys are on a call. You're trying to go after an active duty guy who doesn't know what he's doing. There was no harm on this. It was one sample. We never actually made it. And I started citing a bunch of case law. And they're like, where the hell did this guy come from? You know what I mean? I said, you guys know this is bullshit. You're trying to intimidate us. There's not if you want to try to sue an active duty guy, bring it on.
Yeah.
But you guys aren't going to impress me in your New York office, with your 70 years of law, blah, 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 because I'm right and you're wrong. But I said, here's what I want to do. I said, we do like to give back here. I do acknowledge it was a mistake. We should not have stitched that pattern. I did not know about trademark law that you could, yada, yada. So I want to own that we actually messed up on our end. I'm not just trying to complete. Yeah. So I said, hey, let's each donate $5,000 to a charity of your choice. So find one that American Eagle supports and we'll match it up to $5,000 and let's shake hands and we'll learn from this.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, well, that's not what we were expecting, but we'll go back to the client. And then they came back and were like, yeah, that's agreeable. So we just cut a check to a charity that they, you know what I mean? But when you're the only guy, these are the things you got to do, man. Because now obviously I got lawyers and I'll say, hey, deal with this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's wild. So you dealt with that entire thing.
Oh, and Mal was so stressed because she thought it was going to end the company. Because I think at the time by the time we had probably 10 employees by then. So it was starting to become a little bit of a thing. We had a warehouse by then and she was like, because it was her mistake because she didn't call out with the supplier, hey, because we had sent them a sample. We said, hey, we like the fit on this, but we want to use a different fabric. So just mimic their fit. So we sent them a pair of American Eagle shorts. But they stitched the pattern because they overdid it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they overaccomplished.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're it was a misunderstanding. But Mal was beside herself because she was like, did I just end the company with my one mistake? And I was like, no, I got this. But then I had
that's a miracle.
I was kind of panicking, but I obviously was trying to keep it together.
Yeah, you're trying to maintain self control. Yeah.
So I just give that as one of the million examples I could give of when you are the founder, and it's just a couple people, you literally have to do you have to wear every hat.
Yeah.
And you're not a subject matter expert on any of them. Yeah. Right. You become decent at all of them, but you're never actually a master of any of it.
Yeah.
Right? For me, marketing was probably the thing I was best at because of my Red Bull background.
Yeah.
But all the other stuff, it's shit, I don't know about anything about accounting. Well, I guess I better pick up this book and read how to do a P&L. You know what I mean? Not that we really even ever had that, but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a lot, dude. Juggling all that while being active at the same time. What was your, I don't know if I asked, the SEAL teams, you've got different types of MOSs within the SEAL teams, correct? Kind of like Green Berets?
Not exactly. So you all have the same, rate, but within a platoon, guys will go to different schools to get different specialties.
Okay.
Right. So typically in a platoon, let's say there's 18 to 20 guys, they would want to make sure, all right, we have so many medics, so many snipers, so many comms guys. So guys would go to those schools to get the quals. So by the time you platooned up, you had a rep, you were fully capable as a platoon.
Okay,
You know what I
so you're
mean?
balanced and stuff.
Yeah. But some guys would get multiple. So like, a guy might go to be a breacher, his first platoon, and then a second platoon might go to sniper school. So like he technically has both quals, but like he would likely do his most recent qual like in the platoon. So like maybe he was a breacher, but he's not going to be like the lead breacher when he did breacher school like 3 pumps ago. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
So that's typically kind of how it works. And then, our guys, I don't know if they still do it, but, go get the 18 Delta qual with the Army. And they would do that typically before they show up to a platoon. So that would be kind of an outlier where they go out of the system to go get like obviously that's a really good qual. The 18 Delta guys.
Yeah. What is the 18 Delta?
That's just the medic.
Medic. Yeah. So you guys go to the same medical course?
I think Deltas? It's the same one as the SF guys go to.
It's like a 2-year course, isn't it?
I don't know how long it is, but it's definitely a no shitter.
Yeah. I heard that's the hardest. That's the hardest MOS in the 18 series for like Green Berets. Yeah,
it sounds super stressful, and like their curriculum's hard, and they're doing like obviously live tissue stuff. I mean, it's the real deal. And then I think they end up sending them to do like at a ER trauma unit. They'll go to like some city for like 4 months and do like
Chicago or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think my buddy was up in like, I think it was Flint, Michigan. And he was like, I mean, it was like,
wow,
they would like respond to these like, things in the city, and like there still would be shooting going on, and they're like trying to like,
that's
like
wild.
Triage, and there's like guys are still shooting and shit. And he loved it. He's like, that's awesome. I was like, well, I don't think you're normal, but okay.
That's about as close to the live thing as you're gonna get, is going up to like Michigan or Chicago or something like that, and like doing